Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Grand. I am a hardware hacker by trade. I'm an electrical engineer by schooling, but I basically get paid to hack on stuff and teach people how to do it. So it's sort of like the best job that I could ever have. Someone asked me, like when I was a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be an electrical engineer. Like I want to build stuff out of electronics. I want to think of something and create it. And that ended up turning into my life. I've been going to DEF CON for a really long time. Having a resource like this, a place where you can come with your parents to hack on stuff, is awesome. And I heard somebody, I was sitting down, and they said, Daddy, can we go pick locks now? And like, that is awesome, right? Like that doesn't happen in your school. If you said that in school, you'd probably get in a lot of trouble. So this presentation, I've talked at r00tz'' Asylum before about various projects, but this one is really special because it's something that I worked on with my kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they've seen me do stuff on my own, but this is the first time where we got to do like an awesome project together. So for you kids out there, how many of you guys have worked on something with your parents together? Almost everyone, that's awesome. And this is something where it's like, it's fun to play with them when they want to play Legos or they want to do something, play tag outside, but this is something that it was like really exciting to do, and I wanted to get them involved, and sort of they came up with the idea and then we went about it. So what it is something called the Creaturepod. How many of you guys have seen Wild Cracks? A cool show, right? It's awesome. So it basically, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's on PBS Kids. It's two brothers. They're real life, I think zoology they're a zoologist and a biologist, and they go around and help animals, and we learn about animals, and then they turn into cartoons and go on these crazy creature adventures. So it really is, teaching kids about real life animal problems and the environment and stuff. So there's one thing in the show called the Creaturepod. This is like a video walkie-talkie, wireless, wristband-mounted thing that they can wear. And in the show, they talk to each other with them, and there's a video screen and stuff. So my kids said, we want to try to build something like this. They come to me and say, Daddy, can we build a Creaturepod? And I'm like, well, I don't know if we can build the whole thing, but let's see what we can do. So, the main problem is this isn't real. This is just a cartoon. So we ended up finding online like a creature power vest, creature power discs. So that was okay, but it still wasn't real. Like they wanted the real deal. And then we ended up finding these things, plastic junk, right? Almost real. So I said, all right, well, let's try to build our own, because if something isn't out there and you want it and you think of something, you can build it on your own. So sort of the process for designing a product, first we had to do like a mechanical design to make sure that we knew the right shape of what we were going to build. So I had my son trace out what he wanted the Creaturepod to look like, and then we used that to sort of base our circuit board design, which you'll see it looks very similar to the original Creaturepod. What we had to do from an electronics point of view is put together the actual electronics design, because this was a real product that actually was going to do something real. It was going to be a walkie-talkie that you could talk to your friends with and carry around and tape to your wrist or whatever. So I put together a block diagram. My kids helped choose the parts that they wanted to use. One of them wanted blue buttons and one of them wanted yellow buttons. So we looked through electronics catalogs and picked some parts. So we put together this block diagram that basically showed these major subsystems, the major parts of the project. The one right in the center is an Arduino. An Arduino is like an entry-level electronic module that's very easy to work with, and you can write code in C and control things in the real world. Basically, it's a programmable little computer. If you haven't seen them, they're very cool. So I'm using an Arduino, a small version called the Mini, which is a really tiny one. If you look on the back of the Creaturepod that's being passed around, it's a really small little computer, on a chip. We have a display, we have a radio transmitter, we have a battery, and a bunch of buttons to basically choose which friend you want to talk to, because we have pre-programmed 3 of their friends, or 4 of their friends, including their brother, they push the button of who they want to talk to and it will show up on the screen. So basically the design is like a handful of things that exist, and then we're taking those and turning into something new that doesn't exist yet. Here's the development process. One of the first things we had to do before it ends up as a circuit board, which is kind of the final thing, is we need to order all the parts, put them on something that we can test it out. So we put them on something called a breadboard, which is a way that we can plug components into it, and as we're making changes to the project, if something doesn't work, we can take a part out and put another one in. So it's part of that prototyping process. At the same time as this, I had to write a bunch of software. And it was funny, one point, the first thing we wanted to do is get the display working. And we used a special display from a company called L0pht, who makes a bunch of electronics, kind of hobbyist modules. We wanted to display pictures on an LCD, on a display. Which seems like it would be easy, right? Because every phone has a display, every computer has a display, but it's actually not that easy. So we spent a few hours modifying the code, trying to get pictures that we had stored on an SD card into the side of the LCD to display on the screen. And I remember it was like probably 9 o'clock at night, and my kids should have been asleep. So my 4-year-old went to bed willingly. My 7-year-old went upstairs and tried to fall asleep and came back down half an hour later. He's like, "Daddy, I can't sleep. I'm too excited about trying to see if you get the display working." So I let him stay up with me until like 10:30 at night, hacking on this thing, and we finally got the screen to turn on and display a picture, and we're like, yes, like that was awesome. And then he couldn't sleep because he was too excited that we got the display to work. But sort of incorporating, having him stay up with me, like he got to really feel that kind of passion that you get when you find, say, a security problem, or when you get to do something cool, when you pick a lock, when you solve a problem, like it's awesome, right? And that's that feeling that you can get being a hacker or creating something new. Once we selected the components, once we had the prototype working, we did a little mock-up to make sure that the system would look how we wanted it to look and that all the parts would fit. And then I ordered circuit boards. So I had designed a circuit board and had it made through my friend's company called r00tz'16, which is basically a company that takes everybody's circuit board designs, puts them onto giant panels that get manufactured by a professional circuit board fabricator, and then you get your boards back. So it's a way that that kids and hobbyists and people that are just messing around and want to make a circuit board, you don't have to pay a lot of money to get them made anymore. And that's how we could do something like this really crazy project without spending that much money. So we got the circuit boards back, and my kids wanted to be involved in the process of getting the circuit boards ready, soldering the boards, all of that, because I taught them both how to solder when they were 3. So they got to build the boards. So they built pretty much all of the boards, except for like the really small surface mount parts. I put those on myself. So here's my 4-year-old sanding the edges of the circuit board just to get all the rough edges off. And then my 7-year-old here is soldering the connectors onto the display, which then go onto the circuit board. So it was really kind of a fun project. And then on the right, we had to program the code. So we have our hardware, but then you still need to have your software that's running the computer and telling the hardware what to do. So we had to program that in with a special adapter that we made, basically telling the brain what to do. Once we had that all together, then we had our final Creaturepod, which you guys have seen somewhere passed around. And they were actually really jealous that I got to come to DEF CON and give this talk, because we had given a larger version, a more detailed version of this presentation at a hacker camp called Tour Camp a few months ago. And they were actually up on stage with me giving the presentation, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to talk about our Creaturepod project again." And they were really angry because they wanted to be the ones up here doing it instead of me, so I sort of feel bad about that. So the challenges that come with designing electronics, or that come with hacking on things, it's not always easy. And it can get really frustrating, and it can get, you might get bored with it, or you might get really frustrated, and it's okay, because you can just walk away and come back to the project again. So at one point during the process, my 7-year-old said, "Daddy, this is really hard work." I said, "Yeah, sometimes engineering's hard." And then he also said, "And it's also boring." So he went off and did something else. And that's true too, is like sometimes, engineering might seem boring if you're trying to create something. It's not boring to me, like I liked it. So, you find what you end up loving to do, and it doesn't seem boring. We had some other problems with the radio that we had to fix. It was somewhat expensive. Like we built 4, but if all of their friends wanted them, I think it ended up being like $100 a piece or something, just because we were not buying a lot of them. So when you buy things in small quantities, like 1 or 2, they cost a lot more per piece than if you were going to buy 100,000 of them and manufacture like an iPhone or something. And they're fragile, so you can see the units I'm passing around have some glue, some epoxy on the side that basically I tried to reinforce the LCD because they kept dropping them and breaking the displays. So I'd have to buy a new display and put it in, and that gets expensive. So I put some glue around it and to help with that. So when they're out playing with the Creaturepods, sometimes they break. But even with all of the problems, it was totally worth it. Like, it was a really fun project. I think we probably spent, I don't know, 3 or 4 days together working on it, and it was like pretty exciting. And I think the most important thing that came out of it is that they can, create whatever is in their mind, and kids can create whatever is in their mind, right? It's like, you don't have to tell somebody, say, oh, that doesn't exist. Like, you can't do that, it doesn't exist. You can say, well, I'm gonna learn how to build it, and I'm gonna build it myself. And that's sort of the fun of it, is sort of empowering people to do things and build things and not just buy stuff off of the shelf. And I think that was a really fun part. So if you want to make your own, if you want to convince your parents to, pay the money to buy the parts and build them, it's very easy to do. You can go to my website, all of the electronic design files are there. And then if you go to r00tz'16, which is the website where I order the circuit boards, you can go there and buy the parts. He charges $5 a square inch. So I think the boards were like $20 a piece or something like that. And yeah, the slides are also available online. Everything you need is on my website. So you can make your own, build them, put in your own pictures, change the frequencies. We're using an off-the-shelf radio module from that was manufactured in China that basically is used to create radio systems, walkie-talkies. So what these are, actually real walkie-talkies with a little screen on them. Yeah, so I guess the takeaway is you can build whatever you want. You can design things, you can take stuff apart, you can learn how they work. This is a place to do it with your parents, it's a place to do it. If a teacher says you can't do something, maybe question that, as long as it's not like breaking a rule, sorry, to the parents. But if it's like, well, maybe I can build something that you think is impossible. Like, if I counted the number of times somebody said what I was doing wouldn't work, then I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be on the stage, I would be crying somewhere in a corner. So you have to do what you love, and whether it's electronics or picking locks, or software or apps or whatever it is, network stuff, do what you love to do. Don't always listen to adults because they're not always right. All the adults are like, oh, it's true. Kids are the future. Okay, so I'll give you a little demo. Where's the other Creaturepod? So let's see if we can, we'll sync them up and we'll choose the right channel. So what I have is there's the 3 different buttons. So I will choose, like this one says Ben, so that's my 7-year-old. Connect that to this one's Miles. So Miles has a picture of Ben on his. So I'm basically selecting the channel that I want to transmit and receive the radio signal on. Okay, so there's Miles. So now let's see. Let's take some kids. Do you guys want to use it in the front row? You want to talk with me on a walkie-talkie? Okay. Here, I guess come up on stage. We're gonna do a real live demo. We'll see if this works. Cool. What's your name? Doyle. Okay, so I'm gonna give Doyle a walkie-talkie. So the way to use it, what you do is there's the microphone, and that's the button. So when you want to talk to me, you hold down the button and then talk into the microphone. Okay. So now I'm gonna get mine. We'll see if this works. So here, I'll do a test to you first to see. So the speaker's on the back side. Hello, hello. Testing 1, 2. Do you hear me? Did you hear that? It's sort of loud. Okay, so now you talk into yours. Cool. So yeah, that works. So now we have now we can communicate and we can go play and we have our walkie-talkies. So that's it. It's a fun way to do projects and yeah, go activate your own engineering powers and build your own stuff. So thank you for coming and watching.